Okay, and here we go. McCoy, folks, ladies and gentlemen, Yang Gang, welcome to another edition of Melanated Council of Yang. Yes, we are live Tuesdays at 9. We got some good news. We're streaming not on one, not two, but 3 different channels as of right now. Yes, we made it to the big times.
Upgrade.
Yes.
So right now, not only are we streaming on YouTube, we're also streaming on Periscope/Twitter, and then we're also streaming on Twitch. How awesome is that? Man, that is awesome. And I got a sweet little lag going on, but we'll work that out.
I got a lag.
We will work that out. But even still, what I might end up doing, I think I know what it is. Y'all bear with me. Actually, y'all go ahead and do what you got to do. And who's going to lead us off into tonight's subject?
What is tonight's subject, you ask? Someone asks. We decided to discuss debate questions as we've been in the middle of some tragic, really useless debates. I wouldn't say all of them. I mean, the VP debate was fine, but the presidential debate we had was not the most useful thing. And we figured, well, what actual material would be useful in a debate, in the presidential debate, particularly for the Black community? What are questions centered around Black issues that are, actually more from the community and what people would want to hear answered, and not just sort of, generic questions that someone can give any cookie cutter answer to. And that's kind of just the general sort of topic around today. What I'll say very briefly is that the VP debate actually touched on some things a bit more currently, like with Breonna Taylor's death. And I mean, they got pretty specific in asking about a lot of the circumstances with sort of the racial injustice and the police brutality. So I would say I will give some credit to those debate questions for kind of getting very specific answers out of the VP, out of Harris, about like, was justice served in this case? But we will talk more about other types of questions that should come up, questions that have come up, maybe ones that weren't so useful, and take it from there. So we can, obviously, whatever we're going to say is not about to show up in 2 days on Thursday, but it's still nice to kind of talk about what could have been done to give a better service to people who really wanted to find out Black-centered issues, like candidates' responses to these issues in a real meaningful way. And so we take it off.
Correct. And so, Elle, you want to add anything to what Toby just said, or?
No, Toby pretty much hit the nail on the head. Just better Black debate questions, instead of just like the same old rigmarole we've been hearing probably from the 1960s, I assume, because it doesn't seem like things have changed. Like when I hear some of the questions, it's like Black wage gap, and also like what like Toby said with like the cookie cutter questions as well, like on whenever the hell the last debate was, September or 2 years ago or something, where Chris Wallace was like, denounce white supremacy, and Trump could barely do that. I felt like that was a pretty lowball question. And it was like a question that needed to be asked, but sadly, because it just seems very like we're going backwards, because it's like that shouldn't be a question that needs to be asked.
Right.
It was a question that was asked, and it was like sort of understandably so. A lot of like these white supremacists tend to like also support Trump, raise the Trump flag alongside of like, Nazi symbols and all sorts of other things. But like, it just seems like we're kind of going backwards. We're kind of it still feels like we're sort of like whitewashing Black
Mhm.
questions, and it's like, and like they're still giving like very polished, well, polished enough like white friendly answers to Black questions.
Mm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. And what I want to do, Elle, is I want to take what you just said. I want to kind of expound on that. Like, what do you mean as far as like whitewashing Black questions and then kind of like giving like a white answer to a Black question? Explain that to our viewers, if you don't mind.
Um, like, I mean, do you have any examples of like any debate questions? Sorry that I'm blinking.
No, you're good. You're good. Let's say, because actually I just thought about one. I had my mother-in-law. She was over here and
Okay,
kind of getting into the topic of what we're talking about.
right.
And the one question that I asked her, which would, and again, you guys, this is not front of the debate. This is literally what I just asked her. I was like, well, what do you think about like police brutality towards our Black men? And, you know, and the one thing she kind of brought up, she was like, well, the one thing I tend to think about when I hear that is, well, how are we going to like handle with the aggression that resonates in most Black males? And not to say that they're the cause of police brutality, but understanding like the mind frame that they're in when they're getting pulled over, like how do we help that or how do we curve that? Because at the same time, these are the same Black men that are getting taken out the households. And I was like, that is a good question. That is a good question. And so in that aspect, how will we kind of curb the incarceration rate? Let's go it this way.
Okay.
In the Black community, how do we go about curbing that?
One answer that's always been said. I apologize for not really researching this answer, but they always say like community policing.
Mhm.
Like community officers, like people who are with it, like who are in the community who understand. It makes sense because therefore you know that person, you see like this kid every day, you see this adult every day or every so often you see this woman back and forth, like so you start to kind of recognize the people, you start to get to know the people, and you start to understand like because what tends to happen is like you call the police, they probably live in the suburbs but they patrol in this particular area, or they live in a completely different like county and they come and patrol this
Mhm.
area, and they don't know the situation, they don't know what's going on at hand, they don't know what the situation is exactly, and so they're up to like they resort back to like their own biases, their own judgments, their own assumptions,
Mhm.
and that's not always the best course of action. I also believe that there should definitely be more training, more like psychological training, like not like getting into your mind crazy psychological, but like
Mhm.
studying psychology 101.
Yes.
Like I think that like police officers, because I think like in some other countries, like in Europe and stuff, like they do like 2 years of training, of schooling, and I think that would definitely help if like they had to take psychology 101, they had to take certain classes, certain things to just sort of like understand like uh race, like race relations, um racial bias, racial understanding, so like
Mhm.
questions. History I think is great. I think they need to learn and understand history to see like why it is the way that it is, because I know that if you go into like the social work route,
Mhm.
a lot of these social workers work in like these underprivileged, poor communities, and they only go in with nothing but a binder or like a clipboard, and yet they can empathize and understand the people and, you know, come out fine, then I don't see why a police officer can't, you know, go like, you know, just learn like history, understand like why these people are in this situation, you know, understand that this can honestly happen to anybody,
Right.
and to, you know, better empathize. Like I saw like this one article about the coronavirus saying like 8 million people slipped into poverty. Like, no.
Like, come on, really?
Yeah, that's like it just like it kind of indicates that it was like an accident, or like it was just like it was like whoopsies. They just kind of slipped in there.
Oh man. I'm thinking Mortal Kombat. Like, go ahead.
Whoopsies.
Oh yeah.
I totally forgot about that.
You tell I'm a big gamer.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
That's
if
good.
I were running for a position, that's how I would answer that question.
There you go. There you go. Toby, do you want to take a stab at it? Not literally, but literally.
So for that particular question, you're kind of asking, how do you stop the over incarceration
Mm-hmm.
of Black males? So yeah, I know community policing is one thing that I've heard brought up. Funny enough, this whole entire like as the protests were getting more heated, and people were, you know, it was just a lot of information. There were people who actually said that community policing, they're talking about the data of it, and you know, is it effective? Is it as effective as other things? I feel like, yeah, it takes a lot of information and nuance and really like education on the topic to like answer these questions well. And sometimes I feel like it's not as much of a priority to address issues of Black America or race. And so you end up not getting as deep of an answer as what you just said, Al, with a lot of like, you know, like this could help, you know, like the information about the patrolling and people not even being from those communities. I would also say, I mean, there's a lot of things about police reform, which are all good, but I am trying to see what other reforms or what other things in general will stop the incarceration. I would say a big one is the war on drugs, which is something that you may not see touched by like any politician. I wouldn't say you won't see it touched anywhere, but an acknowledgement that the government had an implicit hand or explicit hand in basically flooding of drugs in different communities, at which point a lot of Black men in particular started to, you know, basically engage in like the selling and dealing, or some of the time, or many times they weren't even really active in it, but people were still profiled and or evidence was planted. But the point is that drugs like crack cocaine in particular came out of nowhere. Marijuana and a lot of other drugs sentenced very heavily. And you would have to have like someone who was very like willing to like say that and just kind of indict the U.S. the U.S. government and history. And that's not something that you often see very boldly. Like you have had people talk on podcasts like The Breakfast Club, of course Yang did, but even like I want to say even Harris and others have talked about decriminalizing or legalizing marijuana, you know, doing something to give back the tax money to those communities, like releasing low-level offenders and helping them, you know, get set up with whatever they need. But a lot of times you don't see these things on the national debate stage, like very explicitly, like, yes, we are going to address the fact that the government ain't ish, basically from like 1970s, 60s, whenever. And that would be a huge one to I mean, people, I think Harris talked about in the VP debate. She didn't go as much into the past, but she did say that we were going to legalize marijuana, like at the end of a question where like she was running out of time already, but she addressed it like there. So it has become at least more okay to say on the stage that you're willing to legalize marijuana, but like going into like a deep history of why the incarceration happened, like some people just say, okay, release low-level offenders, but like really talking about a lot of the stuff that happened, whether it was the war on drugs will be its own episode, but just to touch on like the the Contra scandal under the Reagan administration. There was like, I guess, arms being sold to Iran illegally by the U.S. government. Then that money was used to fund Contras, and I think in Nicaragua. And then when those, basically the drugs from Nicaragua magically found its way, the crack cocaine, into a lot of Black communities. And so there was a very explicit like hand in the government and basically flooding. But that's something that you would never probably see from a mainstream politician saying. And that would be a huge thing to address, why there's incarceration at such high rates, as well as like the Nixon administration. I think like John L. Rickman, some cabinet administration who went to jail, literally like admitted that they basically put marijuana into the hippie communities as well as Black communities, heavily criminalized it because that would help decrease political power in those communities. And so there's like, these things are very like raw admissions that if you really wanted to touch and shake some stuff up, those could be some great questions and things to address, to talk about incarceration rates. I mean, that's really is the drug laws. I mean, that's really the huge one. Of course, the crime bill has come up a bit. Mike Pence had a weird, like, he kind of came for the Biden. He came for Kamala for being attorney general and district attorney when there were Black men being locked up for marijuana. And he also came for the crime bill, I think, for Biden, which is really strange for like Pence, who I'm sure is as tough on crime as possible. Like when he was in Indiana, it's like weird to see them try to like paint the Democrats as the ones who are like the bad, super. Basically, they're the ones in charge of mass incarceration. And of course, there is an argument about the crime bill, but like, so I think what has happened is that it's becoming a little bit more into the mainstream. A lot of times it's for like these political points, like, okay, like I think at one point Trump literally tweeted that Bloomberg was a racist when Bloomberg, I think, joined the race and everyone was saying how this man is trash. Trump tweeted it that he was a racist for supporting stop and frisk, when he himself supported stop and frisk and even said that we should make it nationwide. So people will say anything just, because they want to dunk on the other side, even if they're already guilty in the exact same thing, which is like full steam ahead clown ship, Koopa clown car type stuff. But it was just like really, but the point is that like, I would say that these topics are starting to become more into the national stage, but usually it kind of comes as like some pot shot or some like thing. It will be interesting to see next cycle, as well as debates in 2022, if people will be bolder in addressing some of these types of things. But that's kind of what I would say is a more comprehensive and thorough, more like a root cause versus like where's the solution. I mean, I guess decriminalizing and legalizing marijuana, like I said, and giving the money to these communities is a solution, but like going into the history of why these things have happened would take some real soul searching. To see that on the debate stage, well, I won't hold my breath for now, is all I'll say.
Yeah.
I agree. I hear you. And I just want to kind of like piggyback off of what the both of you guys have said, and especially when talking about the mass incarceration rate. And what folks have to realize is that there's people that have gone to jail for something petty and has cost them their whole livelihood. There's some people who, of course, will say, well, we're on the instance. There was a person who got served a bench warrant, couldn't come to the courthouse for A, B, C, and D, whatever the reason is, and now they have a bench warrant. They get taken in, of course, they get locked up, and the next day they probably can't come out to do whatever the case may be because they're in jail. There goes their source of employment down the drain. And because their source of employment is down the drain, if they decide to get out, have their hearing, and blah, 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 chances are they may not have money to pay rent because they didn't have enough in their savings to cover the rent. So now, not only are they out of a job, now they're out of a home. And you expect them to kind of be in a position to be able to get off their feet and do something for themselves. But we're not even going to talk about the cost of them paying court fees, restitution, such and such. They probably don't have enough money to do that. So now they're in jail. Hey, Dequarius, what's up, homie? What's up, Dequarius? Good to see you, homie.
Yeah.
And
I feel good that as soon as he got home, he came in and logged on to see us.
yeah. And so, and again, it's just one of those instances where I think about, because I've seen it happen firsthand. And, you know, I've talked to these guys and actually heard officers say, hey, listen, you don't think about getting out. You might as well go ahead, stay here. You got your warm cot. You get, 3 meals a day. You got rec. So there's really nothing for you to do. And I'm kind of looking at the dude, and mind you, I got locked up too. So that's why, again, I could talk from experience. And it's like, I'm listening to the police officer looking at him like, are you serious? Like, the man was simply trying to do the right thing. He was working, probably forgot about the court date. It happens, and he finally decided, holy crap, my court date's here, didn't have the time to get off, whatever the case may be. He's out of a job now. You telling him like he's better off staying in jail than being free? Like, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Mind you, now this happened. I was living in Colorado, so that kind of puts a picture as far as what goes on in various parts of the country where we have this stuff that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about, okay, what are they going to do when they get out? And again, talked to my mother-in-law about a lot of this stuff, and I was like, what's wrong with the idea of, let's say, a black debate question would be, once we decriminalize marijuana and we make it legal, and we start to release the inmates for those who have like a non-violent drug crime.
Mm-hmm.
What are the steps that we're going to do to make sure they don't go back, but at the same time, make sure they have the proper resources in place so they don't go back?
Right.
That is a question that I want addressed, and I want somebody to answer that question, because it's a 21st century question, and it needs a 21st century solution to get it solved.
I agree. Well, like, in your perfect world, Ronald, like, you control everything in the U.S. What would be your ideal way of, the path from prison for just, marijuana possession or something minor, or even something kind of major, or what have you, and to back into just normalcy, the real world?
I hear you, dude. I hear you. I hear you. Oh, I hear you. And my thing will be with this, and it kind of goes along the same line, but maybe a little bit different, is like, give them resources, i.e., give them money in their hand that's going to be able to cover the first month, last month's rent. Okay? Give them that. You give them resources of whoever is hiring. And especially if the job is like a manufacturing job that they could get into, as long as they're clean and whatnot, give them that. Give them something that they can do to get on their feet. And so once they figure, okay, let's say I got $2,000 in my pocket, okay? Use part of that to pay for rent, to get a place for me to stay. I can work, get a bank account, this, that, the third. I can work to build myself up. Now that I'm working, I got a job, I've been holding it down for 6 months. I decided I want to go ahead and get a car. I got everything lined up that's going to help me get into the right direction. That's the plan that I want. In my perfect world, if I had one, that's the one thing I want to happen, is to be able to give them an opportunity to get on their feet. But not only get on their feet, give them the resources that they need to be able to stay out of jail.
Right.
And let's say that the reason why they're in jail is because, you know, they were using. Okay, give them resources to go see a rehab center, and allow them to be able to use that money to pay for treatment. And so that same place that's helping them to get off the drugs should be the same place they should go to for counseling, for other resources, as far as saying, hey, we understand you're trying to get off. We understand you're trying to get out. Here you go. We're going to set you up with so-and-so. They're going to walk with you for X amount of time to make sure that you're good. And if you have any issues, you call this person and da. It takes that. And there's so much money going into these prisons that it should go back to the community to keep these people out. And I like the way how Andrew put it when he was saying that what we should do is have safe injection sites, so people that are using drugs, they can go to someplace safe to get the injection done. And I would take it a step further and be like, let's let that same place be the same area it could get off and get help and
right.
see,
yeah, exactly,
without being felt judged about, and still be able to be a productive member of society.
Yeah, I think that would be a better rehab center, because I always hear that people, you know, once they go to rehab, it doesn't really help them. Like, I guess for some people it does. Yeah, like, but I think that would be a lot better of a rehab center, where it's like, instead of using, I don't know, like 3 times a day, it's like you go using once a day, then once every other day.
Yeah.
And then like, or, you know, whatever works with, you know, that person's body chemistry. Some people can just go straight up cold turkey and it works for them. But if they just like slowly progress off, you know, I'm sure that would be like a better rehab center.
Oh yeah, agreed.
And like if they control the drugs, then they could just make the drugs even weaker, you know, as they slowly progress. Like, you know, that may work. I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
But you will. But even then, in your perfect world, L, that would work.
Yeah.
In your perfect world, that would work. Oh man, Toby, you wanna answer L's question? In your perfect world, how would you kind of?
Yeah, and Aquarius has some really interesting things that I'm going to touch on too. After, or that I think we can try to touch on. So I know, of course, like my first thought was what Yang himself said on the debate stage in Detroit, second debate, when he was saying, it was actually kind of clever because the question wasn't really asking about this. It was back and forth of criminal justice. Again, debate questions. God knows how we got where we were with that question, but it became a back and forth between some people, probably Booker and Biden, and Yang basically stepped in, or the moderator came to him, and he basically turned it to a whole different direction about how we need to help people really, like, when they get out, but even more so before they get in, to help prevent them to get in. He didn't get to finish, but that's like, yeah, if you're giving them resources, basic income is one, but you're giving them some type of resource that makes it easier to like stay out of the prison pipeline. That's important. In terms of coming out, what the perfect sort of solution is. I mean, of course, being able to have sort of a guaranteed income that you know that you're going to get when you get out, and you're not going to have it when you're in, that's going to be, you know, incentive where it's just like, take it a month at a time. What can you do to live off of this 1,000, 1,200 maybe, however much, how much, like, what do you need to do to live off of this and stay out of jail? The drug piece is important, and it's good that you brought that up, because that is part, you know, a lot of people are criminalized for being on drugs, or like in general, it's easier to like get on drugs when you're sort of in the system. So definitely having resources, you know, if not an injection site. I mean, I guess it's interesting to hear about the rehab, because I didn't know how effective halfway houses are. Actually, someone I met recently, they work in my building, and she basically, I guess, works as like a people who are I guess it's not really addicts. It's more people who, rather than retirement, people going to retirement home, nursing home, you have people who I guess are well enough that they can sort of live more independently, but they just need some help to be taken care of. And so like they actually have some of these living facilities like where I live, where they also have these people come and live in certain sections of the building. So rather than a whole nursing home where they lose all independence, they sort of have a community apartment complex like this. And you could try something like that where you try to integrate them into the community. So like having some kind of more, like you said, 21st century solution. You have some kind of 21st century living program where they can sort of engage with other people. It's not like they're just feeling like they're by themselves and they have no choice but to go back to the life of crime. You have something that's more modern. Like if a halfway house works, then sure. Halfway house works, then sure. But maybe you try to get them more engaged in other ways. And then I know a big one is also about civic engagement. There's data that shows, and this is huge in Florida, but like after you easily get out of jail, being able to have the right to vote again and being able to have other sort of civic things that are guaranteed by the Constitution. It's like, let's get people these rights back because that helps them stay out and just feel like they're actually a citizen. I know Iowa was big. I mean, shout out to the Republican governor because a few months ago, she gave basically, I don't know if it was all, but a good amount of felons the right to vote back. And apparently Black Lives Matter Iowa, particularly Des Moines, had a big part to play in that.
Okay.
So that was pretty cool to see. And the things like that just like give people a pathway back into normal life and not being the same. I mean, yeah, you did something and you had to pay your time, but are you going to be a second-class citizen forever? Like you want people to feel like proud and have the ownership. So I would say those are some things that will help to be integrated back into society. Like I haven't quite had like a perfect like like I had. It's something that I'm still getting more educated on about the prison system and different things. I actually know one cool program was almost like a boot camp from jail where they let people. I think in part of California, they're trying to bring it to Texas. Was people in jail basically could learn to code. And get certain training. It was all internal, so like they had no internet access really, but they were able to like do some kind of boot camp program and get opportunities with it. And of course, that definitely helps you when you get back on the outside. I know another program. There was a guy who created a podcast in jail, and he apparently won an award. And that was a year. It was some guy. It was like a comedy kind of show, but it was like giving like people an inside look, or at least listen of what it was like to be in jail. And like literally won because I think the guy said, "Hey, there's this competition, and I'm interested." And the guards kind of thought it was a joke, so they gave him the equipment. And next thing you know, he like won. So it's actually very interesting that there's a lot of innovation of what people do to try to reintegrate back into society. And Aquarius, like I know what he said about the jobs program. I'm actually pro jobs program. Like I think it became this whole division point with like Yang, Bernie, Camp, but honestly, like Yang himself came out saying that we probably need some type of jobs program, like I think April or maybe March, just when the pandemic started. He said that we're going to have some huge public works, getting people to rebuild things because there's so much that we need help in. And with the pandemic, it's just become worse, like very, very obvious where our infrastructure is failing. And so I think that is a good idea to have some kind of jobs program that is like hands-on, in conjunction with, of course, the idea of getting the basic income. So like you're able to have something that you can contribute to, but you also have your freedom to build your own thing. Now, I know he just asked if he can get on. Oh, cool.
I'm up for it.
Yeah.
Done. Hold on. Let me copy. Okay. You guys go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and do some
magic.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty much done with my little spiel.
Toby, I did want to touch on something. I don't know if I heard you correctly, but you were saying like there's like if there was like a neighborhood or something, or like an apartment complex rather, for instead of like a halfway house, it's like an apartment complex. Is that?
Yeah, it's kind of like mine where it's a apartment complex. I didn't even know this until a few weeks ago or a month ago, but they have people from like nursing homes here so they can reintegrate and feel a bit more normal rather than living in the isolated center where you have like, you know, nursing staff and everything.
Right.
So I was saying maybe that could be something if it doesn't already exist for inmates, released inmates.
No, like I think that's a great idea, and I was like thinking about even taking it like maybe like a little step forward where it's like a little like neighborhood or a little town where a little town of inmates, a little town of little town.
Oh,
No.
oh boy.
But
Here
like,
we go, y'all.
but like, so like if there's like, you know, restaurants and like, you know, like retail and things like that. So like, you know, if they come out of jail and they have get like a basic income and then like, you know, first and last month's rent and like this little area so they can have, you know, like just some sort of like, you know, like work and try to figure out what they want to do. And like they have like a max of like 2 years of living there.
Yeah, having like a whole ecosystem, that's an interesting idea for sure. Where like, I guess they become like almost the owners of everything, or like you have people who are going to work, like maybe social workers and people who basically decide like I'm going to set up business in this place to help serve this community of ex felons or ex whatever convicts. That because I think we talked about before how there are communities of like people who decided to basically say, F it, we're gonna buy a bunch of land like in Georgia or elsewhere and just live among ourselves. And that was pretty cool. But that's an interesting idea to take a step further, where you say we're gonna develop this for people who are getting out of jail, and we're gonna have them be able to have like a community where they can readjust, where it's gonna be like, you know, basically all black everything, or not even necessarily just black, but like, I mean, that's the main thing. But you want to be able to have people who kind of had a similar, like, okay, we came out of this and we're now trying to push forward. So I do think it's really interesting to have like a little town or neighborhood.
And like, you know, your friends and family can come visit you, but it's like, it's just a way to like reacclimate to, you know, instead of just like getting pushed right into the real world. It's like, hey, this is your space. This is your thing, you know, just try to get used to it. You can leave and come back, or you could just not choose to live in that neighborhood if you don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that it goes into the what is it called? There's a term we're used, but basically the same way how they got into the prison system, how they got acclimated to the rules and the regulations there. This should be the reverse as well, should be when they're coming out. Like, all right, now we're going to reacclimate you to what it means to be American citizen and pretty much deprogram you from your time being in jail. And we're going to reprogram your thinking of being amongst in the real world. You know, we're going to put you with some people that have already gone through this program. Like think of it like a graduate program where it's like, okay, you're being transitioned, so you're no longer an inmate. You're going to be an American citizen, and as long as you keep your nose clean for X amount of time, then we're going to make sure that you get your rights back. And I think that's fair. And I think that's fair because of the fact that they're showing that they've already repaid their debt to society. They've already done that. They've already shown and proved that they don't have the willingness to go back to jail, but they want to stay out because they're not wanting to go back to the same environment. And that speaks volumes. And I think that that will cause them to not necessarily revisit, but help somebody out and see that you're like, listen, I know where you're going. I see the road that you're heading down. don't do that. Go a different way, go a different route, because the road that you're going to end up in, you may not like it, you know. And I feel as though, like you were saying, that small knit community, it'll pretty much have a huge accountability factor towards each other to make sure that, you know, hey, you've been doing good so far. I don't want you to see you slip up, you know, keep doing what you're doing. Or, hey, I see you done went to that store. That's the same store that got you locked up. I don't want you going back to that store. Let's go somewhere else, you know, and be able to have each other's backs, like the same way how they were all locked up together.
Right.
It should be the same way there should be all be living together, but also helping each other to be better, you know, and have a greater appreciation of not only where they came from, but actually where they're going. So that's my thought. But Andrew Yang for Prez then came up with a funny debate question, and I had it up for a while. So debate question: how do you think the Black community looks at you, and how do you think they feel when you say you are not for reparations? Boom, put them on the spot.
Like, I don't know if he was talking about like if a Black person who is not for reparations, or if it's just people in general, how the Black community looks at you.
The candidates.
Yeah, I think it's the candidates. How they look.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And hold on. In 3, 2, 1.
Oh, hi.
Aquarius.
Hi.
Welcome.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
you're
can.
good.
Okay.
You're
How's
good.
everyone?
We're good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Just got off work. Just started a new job. I was out of work for 3 months, you know.
Okay.
Got kind of caught up in the, you know, COVID layoff suite. So yeah.
You're good. You're good. Doc.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, right. I'm thankful.
Mhm.
Good. So welcome to McCoy. Welcome to the channel. I'm Ronald. Got Toby. Got Spooky L.
Hi. I'm DeQuary. I also go by D as well. Yeah, so this is simpler.
Whichever you prefer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Aquarius.
I answered about both, whichever one is easier to say, you know. All right, nice to meet everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so pretty much, you know, we're just chatting about in Black Debate Questions. And really what we're asking and pretty much finding out is what are some questions that you've heard over the last few election cycles that kind of stood out the most, that will seem repetitive, but also at the same time, if there's some questions that haven't been asked that you want to ask here, put it out in the open, then we'll just spin it around and around, you know.
Yeah.
And of course, we have a lively chat. Sometimes they're quiet, sometimes they're not, but you know, it depends. And a lot of people with what's going on right now, yeah, it happens. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at.
Okay.
But do you want to put the question up by Andrew Yang for Prez again?
Yep. Boom.
Okay.
So here goes one example. The big question: how do you feel? Well, how do you think the Black community looks at you, and how do you think they feel when you say you're not for reparations?
Like if you're like a presidential candidate and you come out saying, "Hey, I'm not for reparations," like how do you think the Black community looks at you?
Like what? Like how do I think they would look at me if I said that? If I said that if I wasn't for reparations?
Yeah.
I mean, as far as my personal views go, it's like I can't imagine myself ever saying that. I'm just that pro-Black. I don't. My thought process of not. I can't compute. To be honest. Like, what the question is, like, how would I feel as a voter if a candidate came out and said that?
Yeah, answer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's very open. You have to be like super strict
Oh.
with your answer.
Okay. Leave the question up. It's like, with being there, I'm live and stuff. It's like, yeah, it's different to me.
Okay, so
How do you think the black community looks at you? How do you think people feel when you say you're not for reparations? I mean, they look at you the same way. I mean, they look at you the way they look at Joe Biden. You just, like, I mean, this is how we feel. It's like everyone was like, okay. One thing is, I see. Okay, I put it like this on Twitter. I'll be honest, my Twitter got suspended. I said some things I shouldn't have. Anyway, but the easiest way I can put it is, I don't expect anybody who remembers what it was like to not have to sit next to black people to do something for black people. You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
Like, think about Congress and its makeup right now.
Oh,
Half of Congress remember whites only counters. So to sit there and I just don't like. So how do I feel when I'm like, it's not surprising. It's just like you just feel like, okay, so you're not for reparations. You're like, okay, so what are you for? That's how I do it.
Okay.
I don't know if I've like heard from a politician like specifically say like they're not for reparations, because I don't know if it's either they say that they're for reparations or they make it like mad vague if they are or they aren't. At least like
They're for the study of reparations.
yeah, they say that a lot, like they're for the study of reparations, which is, I'm sure it's been studied, so it's like
Yeah.
I mean, they did the study back during Reconstruction, right? If the Civil War ended, you owe black people some money. Study complete.
I guess it's also for like how will it be distributed and like to whom? Like for example, like I'm of Jamaican descent, so like my ancestors weren't enslaved in this country.
Well, yeah, even that, but the thing is, they talk about, but still, black son. There's still a big, large chunk of black people who still went through Jim Crow days,
right?
Oh, and thing is, like, and I think people really discount the fact that, I mean, that as something like I mean. I'm not gonna say every black person was ever enslaved, but the people from like up north black people are way different from the ones from down south. That's why like when like you always hear our own arguments about what reparations should look like, even amongst the black community, because it all depends on where you. Huh?
Where are you from? What state?
I'm originally from South Carolina.
Okay.
Born and raised South Carolina. Currently, I live in Arizona, though. I live in Phoenix.
Okay.
Got some content. Okay. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So like that's like because you hear a lot of like when you hear a lot about the conversation around reparations, a lot of people from the South, you hear your conversation around money and land and stuff around a lot of people in the South. And then usually when you hear criminal, like for a lot of people from like Chicago, up north, out west, you hear theirs always in the form of education. I mean, that's usually when you think about your celebrities and you think when they even talk about it, whose talking points usually always come from, like think about regionally, whose talking points come from where when their own thoughts on reparations. So that's kind of how I also came to my conclusion. Because I always talk about a form of education, or free education, or or a free education or a free loan. And then you hear like regional, like Southern people. I don't know like why, I don't know, but I guess I don't know. This is the way we are.
I hear you.
And I think you're gonna need to get down to the nitty gritty. You're gonna need a combination of all of them before you get everyone on board with it. Some kind of combination of all of it. Because because you just say education, and the people who don't care for education be like, well, what about us? I don't want to go to school,
Right.
Then you do people. Yeah, and then you do then vice versa. Well, how? Okay, fine, we'll give y'all some money. Well, money ain't gonna do nothing if you're too dumb to know what to do with it. You make all the people mad that too offer education. So you got to do some kind of combination of all of it.
I agree.
You know, and it's funny you brought that up. And Andrew Yang for Prez, I get what you're saying, and I get the context of what you're saying. Like, yes, I agree. Like, you know, when you hear that from a politician, and especially when it comes to their view on reparations, it's like, you know, like Dee said, it's kind of vague. You know, you have some people that say they're for it. You have some people that say they're for the study of it, but you really haven't heard a whole lot of people that have like a actual concrete plan for it. However, we've had one on the channel. Her name was Jen Perelman. She was running for the Florida seat down in Florida. I liked her outline of vision for reparations. And basically she put it like this. She was like, reparations, what she wanted to do is treat it as an endowment fund, leave it in the community where it's supposed to be at. And have people who want to say, you know, if they want to open up a business, rather than go to the bank to get it, they come to this fund, get that money that they need to open the business and whatnot. And so as the business making money, they start repaying on the loan. It goes back to the community where it came from and used for something else. And so somebody says, hey, you know, I want to buy a house, I want to build a house, and I need X amount of dollars. Okay, you tap into this endowment fund. They give you what you need, and then when you make your payments, rather than pay the bank who's not really going to do anything for you, you pay it back to that endowment fund, which stays in your community. Now it just helps grow and build and grow. So now everybody who wants access to it, they have access to it, and they could use it in whatever way. You know, if they want to go to school, pay for school. Cool. You know, take out a loan to go to school. You don't have to worry about paying the fed. You pay back your community where it came from. And so now you're basically putting back resources back in your community to help somebody else out. That form I agree with because it makes sense. Mm-hmm. You know, like I can see that being implemented because, you know, you are going to have those knuckleheads. You give them a large lump sum of money, they're going to blow it. They're going to blow it. Or you say, you know, we're going to make sure that you go to college, like the first 2 years or your first, you know, associate's degree is paid for. You got some people, they'll take that, you know, and be cool with it.
But we also got, I think, another part we're also missing out of the conversation is, because the fact that the question is wealth. And that's the issue, and the question is because like when it comes to reparation and what was taken from Black people, it was wealth. Not only wealth was taken, but it was also the knowledge to actually build wealth upon, like, you know, generationally. And I think Black, another half of this conversation that we're missing is the sacrifice that we as people have to make for our next generation to actually build said wealth, because to sit here and expect it all come in that conversation, they're never going to give it to us without us putting something up too. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Well, have y'all well, no, it's not a side comment, but it's also on the same vein of reparations. Have y'all looked over that contract with Black America at all?
Which one?
The Ice Cubes?
Not yet.
A little bit, but like this was like a while ago. This was before I knew it was Ice Cubes. It's kind of like looked at it as like, oh, okay, you know, like there was like some good points to it. I remember like seeing somebody kind of point out like the $500 billion. It looks like how it's written could just be for literally anybody, not specifically Black people. So I gotta like look into that a little bit more.
Well, he put on it Black people and I believe Indians.
Native Americans.
Native Americans. I'm sorry. Yeah, Native Americans. Yeah. Sorry. Again, Southern. Still a victim of that school system.
Yeah, I gotta check that one out. I gotta check that one out because it's like when it comes to certain issues and certain things, I kind of take it very skeptically because of the fact is like I understand the power that he has, I understand the pull that he has, and so to kind of see where he's trying to use that for
because he was also talking about taking part of the defense budget and reinvesting it into urban communities, because he was, I think he's like, I think like it was like we're 13% of the population, but 17% of the U.S. military comes from Black neighborhoods.
Mm.
From poor, yeah, exactly. And it was talking about, he was like, well, like, veterans and Black people have been given blood and tears, for this country, and bloodshed for this country for decades. Well, bring that money back into their communities. Like, and that was that's in part of the contract. And he also touched on, as part of our like I said, a new social contract with Black America. Like, what we have to give is we have to get rid of some of this anger and his hate, and pretty much finally letting go of that other anger, feeling like we're owed something, and actually start moving towards being more happier people.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of our, the deal on our side. Like, there's a lot of points in it, and he was actually worked on it with I believe Dr. Claude Anderson, the writer of Powernomics, and a lot of those guys. Like, he reached out to a lot of other people, smarter people.
Mm-hmm.
I have it. I done looked over a couple bullet points. I'm still reading into it myself.
Yeah.
I was like, it's a starting point. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely something to look into.
It's worth the conversation,
Definitely looking forward to start into, and I think that with the climate that's going on now, it's like there's some players that personally I didn't like, kind of like with him being set up with, but then again, that too could be a separate topic for a separate time.
Yeah,
and it's like, there's a bunch of things that are going on that probably needs to be addressed, and it could have happened, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 months prior, but coincidentally how it happens roughly around about election time, I'm saying somebody suspect, somebody
Yeah. And
that's
like,
just me.
and the fact that it's like, if they're gonna actually use some of the military budget, like, I don't know, like Republicans, conservatives, like, like,
I mean,
they love the military. Like, I highly doubt that they're gonna actually take money. Like, when you told me that, I was like, that's bullshit. Like, I'll see it to believe it. I'm not saying that
like I said, the contract is a huge. It's like 10 bullet points, and it touches on it touches on investing in Black business. It touches on Black banking, and it touches on reinvesting into like certain like things that can be done by both legislatively and by executive order. Kind of like that whole ADOS thing, but it was like it was created by a bunch of different people. And I kind of understand where you're coming from. Like, it's been out. He's been talking about it for a while. No one ever reached out to him. That was the thing. And then politics took over. And now, like I said, again, our vote is being dismissed or something over someone else's conversation about it. Ugh. Got a phone call.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I kind of have to agree with Ronald about like just the timing of it. Like,
yeah.
What do you say? Like, he's been talking about it for a while. Like, how long is a while? Has it been like years?
No, it's It was, I think it's been at the beginning of the year. I know that much. It wasn't like as far as the contract came out. The contract been out for a few months. It's been out for some months. It came out before the whole. It was out before P Diddy's whole hold your vote thing. I know that much. Which that was and that was like what 6-8 months ago.
I didn't even hear about P Diddy's hold your vote.
Yeah,
Oh,
there was a
yeah.
lot of stuff. There's been a lot, like I said, there's been a lot of things going on. I don't think, honestly, as far as black turnout goes, I don't think they didn't hit a mark at all. The only thing they running on is just please get him out. Like that is literally our mantra right now. Just get him out, and then we'll talk. Then we'll talk afterwards.
I think with his comment, Donald Trump's comment about about not really shutting down white supremacy or like disavowing or whatever the correct term is, that turned off a lot of black people, like who were like black Republicans who were going to vote for him, and then like the fact that he didn't do that did turn off a lot of them. So I know that much.
I mean, he didn't do it last time though, and they still voted for him.
The thing is that it was probably how it was like worded, and also like in 2016, it's kind of like, oh, he doesn't mean what he says. Let's just put him in there and see what happens. It's better than Hillary, and then like this happens, and it's like, oh shit, he actually does mean what he says, and like like these things are kind of So I think it was just like, let's just see what happens, and then they saw what happened, and it's like, I don't know.
That was like, he could set the country on fire. Maybe not. Let's see. You set it on fire. Like, all right, let's put it out.
I don't know. Like it's weird. Like it's interesting, rather, like the things that turn people off to him. There were some people who got turned off because he wanted to push the election day later because of coronavirus.
I mean, he's actively spreading. Here's the thing, though. It's still a toss-up. Does anybody find that insane?
Yeah.
Just the simple fact that we have a president who's actively killing people, like actively spreading a virus to his voters, and it's still a close race.
Yeah.
I think because propaganda is one hell of a drug.
That part, L.
It's a different world in those communities.
Yeah, when you're just like listening to Fox News all day, and then you're like, then you go onto YouTube and you listen to like the Ben Shapiro's and what's his name, Tim Pool or whatever. Like I feel bad. Like I haven't really listened to these people. I'm probably giving them a bad name. They're probably great YouTube people. I don't know. But like when you listen to like all the conservative talking points, and then like they keep regurgitating the same exact thing over and over and over again, and nobody realistically actually goes out and tries to seek the truth, because now like NBC News is not true, and now CNN isn't true, and now like PBS isn't true, and like so it's like now only YouTube is true. And then it's like, because it's telling me what I like. Only YouTube. I can only believe like this particular guy, and then like Joe Rogan, who's I guess like considered a moderate. I don't know. Like I haven't really listened to Joe Rogan, but like
this whole this whole everyone jumping to grab a podcast all of a sudden thing is really getting on my nerves. Anyone else like? I mean, I get it. Like, I'm sorry y'all lost half y'all jobs and y'all broke now because you can't tour the way you used to. But does that mean that every single rapper, every single NBA star, every single NFL player, does everybody need a podcast? Cypress Hill got a podcast. When the last time they had a hit?
You said who?
Well, Cypress Hill.
The group?
Yes, the group.
From like the 90s?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the group?
Cypress Hill.
And
Oh,
there's also Drew Hill from the same time. There's a lot of hills.
Oh, I'm pretty sure if you Google it, one of them out of that band probably got Drew out of Drew Hill. Somebody out of that group probably got a podcast too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just
It's like the things people do to like kind of stay relevant. So speaking of like entertainers and to sort of come back to like Black debate questions.
yeah. I'm sorry.
I mean, this isn't like an
Sorry.
actual debate question, but we can just debate among ourselves.
Boom. There we go.
Yeah, like
This is a part of the conversation. We can tie it in. Go ahead.
so should like Black entertainers really be like the face and the voice of the Black community, like by and large, or like I'll just leave the question at that. Should entertainers, athletes should be the face of the Black community? Should they speak for us?
That's the issue. It's like because Black people have kind of always been that. Well, I'm sorry. No, Toby, Ronald, one of your guys, go ahead. Go first. I don't want to talk first. Sorry.
Go ahead, Toby. We
yeah,
started
I was thinking just like that definitely is something that deserves a conversation in its own right about entertainers. I mean, it's broad, but entertainers, athletes, a lot of people become the voice, especially like on Twitter and these social media platforms. And I mean, there are people who do follow a lot what they say, and they kind of agree with, like, you know, LeBron James has a huge platform. He has a lot of respect, a lot of haters, but whatever, you know, he still has a lot of people who respect what he does and says. You have like a bunch of others, Black billionaires in particular, and there's like other people where it's like people kind of look up to these people, but it's like, I mean, a lot of them do come from some of these neighborhoods. I mean, Jay-Z, Kanye are billionaires, but they grew up in the struggle. Jay-Z especially, I don't know exactly Kanye's entire background, but like they're from Black communities.
Mhm.
So they are from the communities, but obviously Black people are not a monolith. And also the entertainers are going to be much smaller relative to the whole population. And there's only so much you can do to represent a bigger population. I mean, what would be great is to have more like, I don't know, representatives, like being able to connect more with like the local activists and the people who are like farmers in your community and the school teachers, not just like political representatives, but just like being able to have a more, like, if you're going to take direction from someone, it would be nice. Like, okay, someone's famous and now they can spotlight an issue more nationally, but it would be nice to have more of like local engagement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who are the people who are big in your area? I mean, you have some famous people who, like, I want to say T.I., Killer Mike's a big one where they're active in Atlanta. So, I mean, that at least has some sway where they are so engrossed in their community that, like, they might not represent the whole thing, but, like, they have a lot of pull and influence. And there needs to be more of that sort of, like, connection back and being able to find people in the community who themselves kind of become leaders just by their local efforts, activism, and whatever. So to answer the question, I mean, I would say ideally that you would be able to move on. Oh, a big thing that happened in the pandemic, people started, Justin Timberlake, and a lot of people were showing themselves because Justin Timberlake was like, wow, people who have to parent 24/7 are not human, because he was basically forced to be in a house with his kid and no nannies. But he's like in this fancy mansion with his wife. And he got ripped. I mean, people love Timberlake, but he got ripped on like Instagram or Twitter or whatever, because it's just like, probably Twitter, because it's like, all right, the entertainers are just showing that they're super out of touch. And then I think during the pandemic, there were more people who sort of were like getting like disillusioned with like a lot of these celebrities and entertainers being like, we're all in this together. I remember YouTube had a whole thing where a bunch of them were like, we're all in this together. And then that video was panned and disliked to hell, basically, because it's like, people were like, no, like, we're really not in this together. You all can sort of afford your fancy lifestyle, even in the pandemic, and get the best care in general and whatever. So I think like people are sort of waking up and realizing like, you know, we kind of have to be for ourselves. I mean, you do have people like Megan Thee Stallion and others who have really been like putting like I think Megan just literally had a scholarship that she was giving out to Black women, Black girls who want to go to school. So, I mean, there are definitely people who are really engaged and are really, really taking the effort to connect back. But a lot of people, you're just not going to relate. I forget what rapper or someone bought like 6 cars somewhere like April on their Instagram, and then a bunch of people were like, really, this is what you're doing? I mean, it's your money, but people are not going to relate to someone buying 6 cars during the pandemic.
Agreed.
So I'll let someone else take. Oh, I think.
Like, I did want to. I do find it ironic that, like, I mean, I don't really know, like, how many like relevant celebrities, I should say, that like endorsed Donald Trump. Like, 'cause I don't think Ice Cube really did. It's just like he just gave him the plan, and like 50 Cent sort of, but like it's just because of the tax plan. And I don't know. I heard that they gave him like $500,000 to say something. I don't know. That's probably false, so don't even quote me on that. But like, I don't think of like relevant celebrities, and I can't really think of any. Like, it just seems more so like, like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, like, like more relevant celebrities like them. But I find it ironic that like that was even the case, I think, in 2016 as well. For the most part, usually celebrities tend to back the Democratic candidate. That was for sure the case in 2018 with Andrew Gillum and Ron DeSantis, for the governorship in Florida. And, it tends to go, and like when it went to the Republican, for 2016, 2018, like they didn't really have any like celebrity endorsements. So it's almost like celebrities don't even matter. So like even when I see like celebrities endorsing these candidates, like I guess it's good, but I'm wondering like how much of a difference is it making? Like them saying go out to vote, go vote for this particular candidate, go vote for Joe Biden, or if they just say go vote just to be vague. Like I don't know how much that's really helping.
Well, gotcha. Well, and one thing I can say is I think the one person to me that stood out the most throughout this whole thing was Cardi B, and I know she's been getting a lot of flack, and especially with the few interviews that she's done with Joe Biden. I think the last one, huh?
She's done more than one interview.
I know she had one for sure. I almost want to say she may have had another one prior. I could be wrong. I've been known to be wrong, but the one that stood out to me the most was her latest one, and she basically asked him like, what are your plans for Black America? She said, because as a woman of color, I feel for my people, I feel for my community, because I wouldn't be here had I not had like people that believed in me to do something greater than what I was. She said, because I put it to you like this, I could have been doing my own thing and still making money, still go to college, and it would have been fine. She said, but what are you going to do now that you're the nominee, now that you're doing this, that, and that? What are you going to do? And she kind of pressed him on that to kind of be like, okay, if you're saying that you want the Black vote, and if you want Black people to vote for you, that you're going to have to come with some kind of tangibles to say, okay, this is what I want to do for the Black community. And I want to do it in a way where not only am I trying to earn your vote, but at the same time, I want to make sure that your family is safe, that your family's taken care of, that if you want to go to college, that yes, you can go to college. You can go to your community college, get your degree, you're good, and then get a job where you're able to pay that back and be done with it. And so that way your family is not stuck in debt. Find ways to make sure that the minimum wage is $15 an hour. So at least that way you have something to live on until you get something better that's going to pay better, those kind of things. And I think that in a way, celebrities could use their pull and their power to kind of pressure not only just presidential candidates. I mean, you could say they should do that for their state and local candidates as well. Like, okay, what do you want to do in our community that our community should vote for you?
Mhm.
And what are the tangibles that you have that we should look into and be like, okay, we see what you're wanting to do, let's make it happen. You know,
Mhm.
that kind of deal. Like I like the way how Toby, how you said that Killer Mike and Ti, how they're down in their area in Atlanta, you know, making sure that you know, hey, y'all get out and vote, educate yourselves. This is that and the third. And I believe that if more and more people or celebrities that are really, really in tune in their community, not saying, "Oh, I want to help you guys, and I live in a big fancy house in like you
LA.
know in like LA, you know, but I
Mhm.
want to do something for you guys." It's like you're not helping me. You're not here in my neighborhood where I need you. You're not, you know, a phone call away. You got to be a phone call away. You got to get in your private jet, get in there, to fly there. Like, no, that's not what I need. I need you to be here in my neighborhood. So
Mhm.
when stuff pops off, I know that you're going to be the one to kind of speak something into it, and especially when we got these candidates that are running, that's running on some chump change. No, we want you to be able to be like, you know, hey, what do you mean by making sure that folks that's in jail for minor drug offenses that are not like violent related, you know, they get out. Like, what do you mean by that? How are you going to make sure they don't go back? How are you going to make sure that when they get out, that they have the resources needed to, you know, not go back? Those kind of ordeals. And I think that if more celebrities use that to their advantage to help get a leg up for their neighborhood and their community that they say that they love and want to uphold, I think they'll have a better representation overall and a more so greater respect. So for me, it's more so, yeah, I hear you, but I also want to see you backing up what you're saying.
Mhm. No, I agree.
So,
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes with like the whole like going back into your community.
mhm,
Like when they say like, oh, like these people, these basketball players or football players go off and they never get back to their community. I was like, yeah, that's true. Because like if you're discovered in like I don't know some town in Mississippi and then you go to like a D1 school
come on.
in like like Auburn or something, and you're probably not going to go back to Mississippi, this little town, unfortunately, and then you're
Right,
going to go off and like be like a big football player.
right,
So
right,
then you're going to live in whatever city that is, which is most likely not Mississippi.
right. You
Yeah.
know, I use I'm glad you brought that up, because there's actually a good example of somebody coming from a small town, making it big, and actually pouring back in their community. You guys remember who Greg Jennings is from? Who used to play for the Green Bay Packers, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, like years ago?
I know nothing of sports.
Okay, so there was a guy. His name is Greg Jennings. He he actually went to school in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Okay.
He graduated. He graduated from Kalamazoo Central, went to Western Michigan University, and got drafted to play for the Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
His mom and dad still lives in Kalamazoo. And
Mm.
so during the 4th of July, when he's pretty much off season, what him and his family do, they get a bunch of fireworks, and their house is big enough where everybody can see it on the north side of Kalamazoo. So everybody comes to the north side of Kalamazoo, and he does his own firework display, his own firework shows in his mom and dad's backyard.
Mm.
And everybody comes over and watches it. And it's like, wow, this is the guy who went to the NFL. I know my cousin, he actually went to high school with Greg Jennings, and he knows Greg Jennings, and so he's like, yeah, Greg Jennings is a cool guy. Like, surprisingly, my grandma knows about him. I'm like,
Mm.
you know about Greg Jennings? She's like, boy, I know his whole family. What you talking about? I'm like, okay, grandma, my bad. Like, if that's your boy, go for it. Yes. Like, but but she was so passionate about it that it was like, okay, cool. He was probably be like the one person that I can say, like, as far as like a celebrity or major athlete would go, that kind of gives back. He would be my good example of what he does, because he realizes that most kids on the north side of Kalamazoo, Michigan, they won't probably have that chance to go.
Of course.
But at the same time, because he made it, now he's like, if I could do it, and I grew up in the same crummy neighborhood that you grew up in, went to the same crummy school that you did, and still excelled, you can do it too. You have no excuse now, And another good one, I hate to say this one, y'all. Y'all got to bear with me, would be Floyd Mayweather. Okay. A lot of his family lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan, whether people want to believe it or not, even though he has a house in the condo down in Florida somewhere, but the majority of his family lives in Grand Rapids. And so every so often he comes up to Grand Rapids and gives back that way. I know his dad has a boxing ring in Grand Rapids, and he trains people to box. And so he kind of like, helps his dad out by making sure that if somebody wants to learn how to box, that they come to the boxing gym and they learn, they get trained for, and if they're good, they actually go amateur, with the Mayweather, team, and go that way. So you have that aspect where it's like you got, hey Jay, what's going on, Jeremiah? Yeah, there you go.
Is that your brother?
That's actually my son.
Oh,
That's my oldest.
okay. How old is he?
Oldest.
14, right?
He's 13. He's a tall 13. He's a tall 13.
Okay.
And again, it's like, it's one of those things where like, I gotta respect the man, because what he's doing is giving back to the people of Grand Rapids. And even then, I mean, he does some good. So it's like, I can't knock him, because as a person, kind of sketchy. But as a boxer wanting to give back, like, I can't fault him. I can't fault him at all, And again, those are the two that I know of that I could kind of talk about. And it's like, okay. So
didn't like LeBron James give back a lot to his?
Oh yeah, he's at the Full Promise School. That's a whole.
Yeah.
When we talk about education, oof, Erica, it's gonna be a fire conversation. Yeah, no, LeBron definitely did a lot, and actually, Aquarius just had a good comment about. Yeah, I think they should be. Yep. So that I think is perfect. You help nationalize and spotlight things, but then you really empower people. Like, 21 Savage. D-Cent said vote for Trump because Biden will raise it. Did D-Cent actually endorse? I didn't know he actually endorsed / through his support.
Yeah, it was in a tweet, and then I think also on Instagram, he literally copied and pasted his tweet. He didn't correct his grammar mistake.
No, not at all. That's why I'll pay no mind. Sorry, not sorry.
And it was just oh, he's gonna raise my taxes. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, what do you think? Duh.
400, because what? $400,000, right? If you make over 400,000,
yeah,
that's wild though.
I don't think I know anyone who makes over 400,000.
No, I personally don't know anybody that makes over 400,000. So it's like 50. Pay your just dues. Shut up.
What is interesting is I think not like Donald Trump, but I think the president's salary is 400,000 a year. So I guess the president will be taxed.
Cool. Man, never mind. I'm not even gonna go there.
Fight it. And if that shit passes, it probably won't even pass that 400,000 thing.
No. I mean, but I mean, I look at it like this. There's folks that I know that are making six figures. They struggling. So it's like,
right, yeah.
Clearly, there's a disconnect there. So 50, if you gotta pay your just dues, dude, you've been in the rap game for so long. you can pay your just dues and still not miss a cent. Go on somewhere.
Not miss a cent, literally.
Yeah.
Not miss
Yeah,
time,
all
not-
50 of them.
you won't miss. There we go. There it is.
Like,
The joke.
but it's true because, like, I mean, his life isn't gonna like drastically change.
No.
I mean, he's gonna be out here. He might just make another album. That's about it. Like,
Yeah, there you go. And it'll probably go platinum. And so even after you hey Manny! Sir, hey
Hey.
President Manny.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Oof,
Thank
Oh.
you.
my heart swells.
Yeah. You know, my
Man.
brother's name is Manny, so that makes me feel good. One of my brothers.
Yes. Manny, that if y'all don't know who President Manny is, if y'all haven't followed President Manny, I'm gonna need y'all to follow him on Twitter.
Yeah, I got to because I don't think I know.
Man,
Trying to see if he's familiar or not.
dude, like I put it to you like this. He just recently, it was him and I think it was either Megan or Kateri from the Gang Book Club and some other young lady. They all came with a great idea of hopefully once COVID kind of settles down, that it should be like a Yang, like doing like a Yang Gang convention where everybody from the Yang Gang comes and meets up and like says hi and whatnot. Because and I thought about it. It was like, well, if you think about it, there was supposed to be Gang Palooza. A lot of people who wanted to be there couldn't make it. And a lot of people who were there, it was so much fun. So I was like, well, why not just get everybody together and just do like a huge meet and greet celebration? You know, it makes sense. And especially with a lot of people being locked down for such a long time to kind of like get out and get some fresh air. You know, why not? I'm down for it. Like, heck yeah. You know, I might keep my mask on me just in case because we in Texas and, you know, there's some people in Texas, I don't know. Other people, gang, y'all good. But everybody else, nah, I'm straight. I keep my germs to myself.
Maybe I have to see the tweet because I remember one person said like, yeah, we should have a convention. I just saw it earlier today or yesterday. Though the one that I saw was
I didn't know that.
something in Denver. Oh, I didn't know it was. I'm gonna actually take a look because I know I retweeted something about or did I like it? But I remember seeing something about a convention too, and I was like, oh snap, that would be interesting.
I think that would be a good idea because, like, also you could also maybe host like people who are running in 2022 and you know the years after, and then like you know we could get to know those candidates and like try to promote them, and because sometimes it's good to like actually meet these candidates.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't vote for them. I'll know who I'm like donating to because like any old person would be like, oh, I'm for UBI. I'm gonna run, and then they don't.
Right. Anyone can start to just like slap that onto their. Just UBI. So I definitely agree. And I mean, there was already supposed to be some informal type meetups. I think it was supposed to be like more of like a Halloween time.
Yeah, New Orleans.
Vegas. Oh yeah, New Orleans. Okay.
Man,
so that would have been fun. But like now, of course, such things ain't happening now.
Yeah.
But next year, I mean, I'm gonna take a look at that again. I'm gonna find this tweet somewhere because I definitely pretty sure I thought I retweeted it, but I definitely want to, follow this type of thing. Cause I mean, I know at the beginning of COVID, it was so crazy to think about meeting up. Right. So now that things are things aren't necessarily clearing, but there are some states at least are using common sense and they know how to proceed. So basically it's a possibility that there will be, I don't know how big, I don't know exactly how some of these things will work, but I would look forward to it for sure to see what people do to, have a socially distanced / just screw it, YOLO type convention.
You got me in the tweet. Bet. Okay.
President. Yes, President. Because I definitely was about to, I don't know where I was going to find this. I was like, I guess I saw it and I just lost it.
Yeah, I would not have known where to look for that.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
It was wild. It was wild because I'm like, okay, because thank you for the correction, President Manny. Thank you. Because it was Yang's idea now. now that memory's coming. It was James' idea. And so it was like, shoot, why not? Why not do it? Why not have everybody from the gang meet up? But what I like the idea that the Aquarius mentions and organize UBI candidates for 2020. That's huge because even if we could get if it can happen in 2021, let's run with the idea that it does happen in 2021.
Mhm.
Now we have these candidates who we can see, like, okay, we see who you are, and especially if they're running on UBI. Nah, you the president. I don't
Yeah,
care
no,
what you say, Manny.
No, we have to call you President, Matt. You have to say the whole thing.
Yeah, we got to call you President Manny. There's no other way, sir.
I mean, look at this picture. He's like standing in front of like the seal.
Yeah,
There's no other way. President Manny.
Suits. Yeah, you're President.
but yeah, literally.
That's your name on McCoy. You're President Manny. Accept it. Anyways, like I was saying, it's like now we can kind of like talk to them, and especially if they're going to represent a population that has a nice size Black population, that'd be huge. That'd be so huge, and so now people can put a name in the face to who's trying to represent them. I'll share a story. I was out canvassing with Amy East. She's a representative running for the 59th district in Michigan. And we're canvassing in my brother's neighborhood. And we just so happened to stop at my brother's house. My sister-in-law, she's leaving. And so she asked me, say, hey, Ronnie, what are you doing? Like, oh, I'm just doing some canvassing with Amy East. And she's like, who is that? And she just so happens to walk up. She's like, well, hi, I'm Amy East. I'm running for Michigan's 59th district, which includes Three Rivers and some other surrounding cities. She's like, oh, really? She's like, yeah, like here's a flyer to some more information about me. She's like, you know, your brother-in-law has been a huge help, blah, 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 and whatnot. She said, oh, okay. She said, now I could put a name in the face. You're on the ballot? She's like, yes. Democrat? Yes. She's like, you got my vote. And that's it. And a lot of people, they just need to know and see who they're voting for, and you're good.
Mhm.
And you know, if they want to ask you questions afterwards, go for it. And I think that that's key because a lot of people, they don't mind the donating part because they don't live there. But if you have somebody that lives in your area that's running, and especially they're running on a platform that was from Andrew Yang, yes, we got to get them out, get them out in front and get them known so people can know who they're voting for. They have a choice. Why
Also
not?
need to like take pictures with them or video with them to be like, hey, this is a real person. I met them. Here's proof.
Yes,
So that helps too because it's like you're just kind of like a liaison. 'Cause
yes,
it's like, hey, I may not be in I don't know, Boston, but I know people who are probably voting in that district or know people who might know people. So it's like, hey, I actually know this person. Do you know anybody who's like that?
right. Okay.
Looks like someone typed their password onto the stream.
You need to change your password, sir. Oh my God. Why?
That's not a creative password, my guy.
Okay. Moving
No,
on.
but I do think that's a really good idea in general. And that's kind of like, that'll be interesting. Maybe that'll be more of like a gang specific thing to talk about. Like I've always had an idea of just like trying to like because of the pandemic and because Yang dropped out really first and foremost, people kind of went back to their lives.
Mm-hmm.
But like being able to really get people down into one room because I even remember like I was technically a fundraising, not a chair, but I had like a link that I could use to help fundraise, but I never really used it. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna ignore this chat. I can't look at this. When I had a link and it had like my name in it, and it was like an ActBlue link, but specialized where I would basically get to keep track of funds coming in, and they were like, whoever gets to fundraise a lot or the most, basically a certain amount, would get invited to some summit in January, and it was either going to be like in New York City, San Francisco, some other location I can't remember, or Iowa, Heart of the Action, and that would have been January, and I thought that would have been so cool. But that would have been like specifically people who were helping the fundraise. So like I do think that having more like opportunity to meet up. I mean, I know there were rallies, Paget and a lot of the big names would always cover those rallies. And that was cool, grassroots Yang game. And there's a lot, but it would be nice to have more Yangapalooza type things where it's like if people really want to take a weekend and go somewhere, like that would be like really, really cool. And obviously now it's not an election year, or when it would happen would not be an election year, wouldn't be Yang on the ballot. But having that in advance for 2022 would be pretty cool. To take the URL to IRL, as people, they tried to brand that as like a Twitter is fun, but 90% of people are not on Twitter. So having like almost a little convention, and I mean, it would be interesting the branding of it, because of course before you had Yang signs, you were running for president. Now it would be kind of like, okay, humanity forward, I guess, or just trying to like bring awareness of certain things that we care about. One, meeting up among ourselves, maybe even being able to like attract attention, get coverage, show that this movement's not going anywhere. So that definitely would be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. That'd be a lot of fun.
I get to meet y'all. Hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah.
And let's see.
Whenever the hell this coronavirus gets under control, I don't know. Like, I feel like it won't be until like 2022. But like, I don't know. Supposedly a vaccine is coming. I think like mid next year.
It's like not gonna be mainstream yet, from what I understand. Beginning of next.
Yeah, it'll probably be like finished by like the end of this year. But like to actually distribute it and make sure and like test, probably be like sometime next year.
Right.
Definitely second half of next year.
Yeah.
Wow. All righty. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've had a discussion, a wild one, and a fun one, entertaining one, and we thank you guys for tuning in, because of the fact that this is the first series that we're going to be streaming on 3 different platforms. So if you haven't heard it before, not only are we streaming on YouTube, but as of right now, we're streaming on Periscope through Twitter, and we're also streaming through Twitch. So I'll do the links or the little channel tags and the links down below after this video. So if you guys miss it, feel free to link in the description, follow those 2 channels. And of course, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, like the channel, like the video, things of that nature. And we're just going to grow this thing and get this thing out there, because not only do we have a unique perspective, but there's some topics that need to be discussed. And in order for those topics to be discussed, you have to have a seat at the table. And so by us having the seat at the table and we're creating it, we're going to talk about it. And we're going to do oh yeah. And so then we're going to just, I don't know, one of my kids is spamming. I don't know who it is. I'm thinking it's either my youngest or my daughter. One of the 2, because my oldest, he's down here. He's downstairs. So it's no one not him.
I don't know. So
my youngest is gonna get my oldest in trouble. So y'all bear with me. But still, again, like the channel, subscribe, do what you gotta do. And just continue to support. We love it, we appreciate it. And we will, if anybody has one, we'll do the same for you guys. So before we leave, L, Toby, any final thoughts? Chat, any final thoughts? No.
They will be, and I haven't looked at the rules for the debate, but if you want part 2 of some clownery, Koopa Clown Car Boss Battle Part 2.
Car Boss Battle.
Watch that debate and see the flaming
crap
show.
Yeah.
Also, research your candidates. There will be a special discussion next week
Yeah.
So know your candidates, local candidates in particular.
Yeah.
And definitely just keep on keeping on. We got 2 weeks of this. Oh my gosh, so much leading up to 2 weeks. Like, holy crap. It leads up to one day. Well, because of early voting and mail-in, it's more of a process now. But a lot of it leads up to one freaking day, and it's just like, ooh, can that day just...
Have you guys voted yet?
I have.
I need to look at my ballot. I just came last week, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't voted yet. I'm gonna go in person early. Early voting just started yesterday, and apparently there was like an hour wait in some places, which is good.
Yes,
but
I mean, yeah,
but good.
Bad but good. I did the mail-in ballot. I did it that way, and I'm used to, because again, the 7 years we've been out in, we lived in Colorado. That's what they've done. They've always done mail-in ballot, and so when we moved out there, we were able to participate in the general for them, as far as a Hickenlooper. And I think the big one during the time we were out there was the legalization of marijuana and use it for recreational use. Was able to vote for that. And then, of course, for the presidential term. And so, with that being said, it was like when Michigan just said, hey, we're doing mail-in ballots. I'm like, oh, yeah, sign me up. Like, I don't care what clown face has to say. Mail-in ballots are probably like the safest thing, period, because as long as you follow the rules and you do what you're supposed to do, you turn it in, there is no discrepancies. It's probably just as safe as going into the actual polling. Right. But the only difference is because of the coronavirus and how a lot of the mail kind of runs a little bit slower now because of less workers. Mm-hmm. That's probably like the only drawback. But other than that, if you're able to vote early in mailing your ballots early but ahead of time, it'll save you so much headache. And even then, with the mail-in ballots, what we've used to do was look at the candidates, see who's running, see what their platform is, and see what they're doing, what they're saying. Utilize vote411.org, ladies and gentlemen. Vote 411.org. Utilize it. That is your best friend.
For sure.
And then, see what they're standing on. And like, okay, I'm going to vote for you because of what you said here, 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 and here. You got it. And so that's going to be for next week. So y'all tune in. And again, you guys, just and the one thing that I ask, if you're aware of, like, see what positions are running or up, and notice what positions are only go uncontested, because we want to highlight those for the next week's stream. Okay, so gang, for those that are watching, Spooky L, Toby, I'm not gonna get over that. I love it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You guys see what's on there, and let's bring that to the table. Let's talk about it, because who knows? Come 2021, 2022, 2024, somebody might run for that position, and if they don't know what's open and available, they gotta know. Okay, so those are my final thoughts. Anything else?
Just vote.
That's all I really had.
There you go. All right, you guys. Thank you for watching. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Tune in next week, 9:00, same channel. And again, like I said, I will post the 2 links for Periscope and Twitch in the description box down below, so that way you'll have it. This is McCoy. See you, Mindful Skeptics. Thank you for stopping by as always. We're out of here, you guys. Peace.